starting the session today. And I deeply appreciate the fact that each one of you have taken out time to be here. And as Dr. Lakh mentioned, that's a very difficult proposition. So we truly appreciate the time that you've taken out here. As I was mentioning before the session started, that we're going to talk about the future-ready networks for Bharat. I think we had a mini session sitting outside on what are the issues to be covered. So we have been looking at what are the policy challenges to make sure that a future-ready network is available. How do we ensure there is an enhanced government academia collaboration in that aspect? What are the research issues that government would like us to focus on? What are the areas that needs more light to be thrown in? Now, as Dr. Mitra was talking about digital economy, and before that, we had coined a term called digital colonization.
And the point was essentially that there could be a technology denial regime that will happen, and that continues to be there. It's the first time that we had certain patents in the 5G deployment that happened. We came out with the 5G-I, which is an India-specific version of 5G. We are slowly clawing our way into the nuts and bolts of technology, in being able to have a say on the high stakes of technology policy. But also, as we look in the backyard, when we look at the future ready thing, we should also look at what happened in the recent past and in our backyard. Is when COVID happened, all of us are aware what happened. There used to be these theoretical terms called digital divide. We saw that starkly what happened in COVID. Those who did not get access to digital also had education divide. They did not get access to education. Health divide. They did not get access to health. Opportunity divide. They could not work. They just sat at home. They could not do anything. So it is a significant affront to humanity if digital networks are not available. Because the simple three things of education, healthcare, opportunities is denied if there is no access to the digital networks. Now, if you're talking about digital networks in India, we have seen pretty strong networks in the urban areas. We've also seen pretty good networks in with the belt. Very high quality networks has been rolled out. All of us are aware what the three forces have done. But the challenge still lies in the rural areas and also with the urban people. These are obviously policy issues that all of you are grappling with. You're all practitioners from the government side. And therefore, how do we make sure that we are able to roll out a network in the rural areas in a landmass which is almost a continent? And thereafter manage it, which means that we need to have some kind of a revenue model, some kind of a funding model. There have been suggestions that what is going to flow on top of these networks. That becomes a challenge. In the rural areas, if you put in a network, what happens to that network? If it is not used, it'll start getting degraded. In fact, when the tsunami happened, decade ago, I guess, there were networks in Tamil Nadu which were supposed to work for tsunami. They had set up that whenever a tsunami happens, the network, the alarm will start talking, will send the alarm. But unfortunately, because they were not being used on a day-to-day basis, the entire system did not work. So a system after being deployed has to start working, otherwise it starts getting degraded. We have seen that happening in our environment itself. So how do we make sure it happens? It works, it is used. What is the traffic that will flow on top of this network? Is it going to be entertainment? Is that the clear up? If it's entertainment, then should that be a way of funding the network itself? We should be open in mind in terms of how and what should be driven into that network, because perhaps health and education is not sufficient. What we see people taking to when they use network is entertainment or cricket or one of these other issues. So there are large number of high throughput content that is being put through. Should they be bearing the cost of the network itself on a continuous basis? Should there be some revenue share? It also has been counter arguments to it. One way or the other, we need to solve this problem because many of our telecom companies are shut down. We want them to be healthy. We're left with only 3 of the companies. How do we make sure that they continue to operate? Now, when we roll out these networks to rural areas, how do we make sure it reaches the home person? Also, when we do Awas Yojana, we build up multi-story buildings for the urban poor. How do we make sure that the network goes to every single apartment in that multi-story building? Can we have mechanisms, policies to ensure that when the building is being put up, these networks, these buildings are already connected? And there have been efforts that have been made by the government, and perhaps what we need to do is push that and accelerate that. And we look forward to hearing from you on all those initiatives from the government side. In addition, we know that the use of network in this country is extremely high. I'm talking about physical networks. They get cut, they get chopped, they are connected from tree to tree, from lamppost to lamppost. And when the super cyclone hit Calcutta, all these networks which had fiber hanging from tree to tree and from lamppost to lamppost, they stopped working. The telecom operators who had put the fiber under the ground, they were functioning. So when we are looking at a post-climate change environment, there will be more floods happening, there will be more cyclones happening. How do we make sure that we have a resilient network? Which also brings us therefore to the issue of the quality of network. Can we have quality of network which can resist all these changes? Can we have networks which are which are future-proof, which will last for the next 25, 30 years, so that we don't keep spending money on it again and again? What are the other kind of connectivities that are needed? One of the suggestions was a discussion on IoT itself. In fact, there were two policies, the IoT policy and the end-to-end policy that was rolled out, and there was very significant amount of energy spent by the government on those two aspects. And when we roll out those networks, because there'll be many more IoTs than humans, what kind of network will they flow through? What is the backend network in which they will flow? We've heard about smart meters, which will form a mesh network, and that's a different kind of solution altogether, and extremely brilliant solution. But also, how do we make sure that there are proper pipes being laid out? We provide broadband in rural areas. We accelerate the 4G saturation project. We accelerate 5G rollout. We provide all the backend that is needed, which leads us to the point about technology standards. So there have been talks about mandatory telecommunication standards, equipment standards, MCTE standards. Um, why not adopt it? Why not push our indigenous manufacturing to ensure that they adopt these higher standards? Upgrade the D fiber to at least A2 fiber. Very little investment is needed. So that at least make sure that we get a very robust manufacturing for our domestic industry that leads to a very um, high quality implementation. So we get the industry to support what the government's vision is, and therefore, what should we do from the industry side? Which brings to the last point about the resilience of our networks. And resilience from not just weather, but resilience from supply chain issues. If there are supply chain deficiencies, and this is true for even the military networks, if routers cannot be provided to India, if fibers can be provided to India, if preforms can be provided to India, then how do we maintain this vast network? Therefore, what are the steps to be taken to create Atmanirbhar networks within the country with proper supply chain resilience? So I'll stop here in terms of the the background of what we have all come together today to decide, to discuss, to bring our minds to, exchange ideas, and take your advice in terms of what are the areas that we should be focusing on as we move forward. So with that, I'll start from my left. Okay, my apologies. So, Professor Gupta, if we can start with you in terms of what are your views. Yes, good morning. Welcome to Professor Deshmukh. Good morning. Good morning. We just got started. So we are
Sorry for changing your schedule for this kind of information, giving me the opportunity first. It is very simple. It is 11:30. I have another event lined up. Long back, about a month back. It just got fixed. You see that Bhattacharya, you have said several things and several issues you brought out. Okay. And I being exposed to networks from a long time, 1977 onwards. Okay. I know that every time we talk of network, this is not that we are talking about the event as such or technology. See, like it is a technology, technology is never mature. That's number one. That we understand. I cannot talk from the economics point of view or the management point of view. Obviously, I have heard several times, okay, but I talk something about that part. That's the thing which I said. The important thing is that as of all of us know that we talk of the smart meters, space meters, IoT, everything together. So the amount of data which is aggregated and pushed into network is really very, very large and heavy. Sometimes it can be very heavy and it is variable depending upon the kind of services being used in the network. We understand this. So all the time we start talking since mid-80s or something like that, broadband networks. We start talking about that. And the question is that the broadness of broadband we still don't know. Today it may be the 1 gigabyte is a gigabit per second is broadband, tomorrow it is 30 gigabit per second. So that broadbanding business we still do not know where the broadband will start. And the standard data is that you give me the road, I will fill with the vehicles. The same situation here, you give me the data highway, I will fill with the data. Okay. And this, as somebody has said, you said actually, that we just do not know the kind of services being used on that. Okay. And whether how long the services will go like that. That's also important. Earlier the 80-20 rule was there, that something like that the 80% voice traffic, 20% data traffic, we started from that in 70s. And now it's a reverse situation. It's a 80% something like the data traffic and 20% is voice traffic. In voice is digitized, except that the quality of service is different. That's what we are trying to look at it here. So all the time when we start doing the so-called newer networks or future networks, we have to look at the parameters what are measurable and what are not measurable. So the measurable parameters, essentially, first thing which comes to our mind technically is the quality of service. So we look at the kind of quality of service which is there. And that also cannot be defined as such. Okay. Different applications they float, they start talking of this kind of qualities are there, this is the latency I require, this is the throughput I require, this is the reliability I require, these kind of things. Okay. What actually it means, I mean the administrators would like to look at it at a certain point of a time. The kind of network management system you have, okay, that is what my contention is, that unless you have a very strong network management system, you cannot regulate the kind of services being floated there. And especially in the situations when you may have to do several times the islanding of the network. Okay. Just like in the power systems, when you have the grid kind of situation is there, and suddenly you find some portion is failing, you have islanding. Similar kind of situations you have to do in networking also. Okay. So what I'm trying to say is that we have to design the architecture which is not the borrowed architecture. We know what architectures are there, but we have to evolve our own architecture. Okay. When I'm saying we have to evolve our architecture, it does not mean that I'm trying to use the outdated technology. No. I can still use the modern technology and still design the customized architecture which is suited for me, for my country. Okay. That is where the whole thing is there. So situation is, like in our Bharti school, we have the standard organization is already sitting there. They are trying to arrange various workshops and things like that. The point is that we still do not know the impact of existing standards. Something comes to us from the standard bodies. We look at it, we go to the shelf, try to get the equipment, connect and say our network is ready. That's what we say, tend to say. Good for deployment purpose. But for the services purpose which are likely to be conceived, it's not good enough. Okay. What we need to think, our own. This is available, this is what we can do. And you actually said something like this, that supposing technology denial is there, then what? What do we do about it? Okay. And the kind of thing which management person will try to say much later, our PSUs, they were working at certain stage there. For some reason, they were inhibited. I say very clearly, I heard several situations, and suddenly government realizes that they need to do something. Now that gap situation, which was there like Indian telecom industry, I know for sure. Okay, for certain time was dominant. After that, there was a gap. I mean, there was a de-emphasis there. And suddenly government decides that you go for 5G equipment. Now that gap situation, pardon me my saying, as far as I know, I mean, I heard from the telecom board persons, okay, that somehow that missing gap is still not filled. So one has to look at totality. We cannot completely say that X company, Y company or Z company, they are competent enough, but we also have to look at whatever our own databases have been there or industry bases have been there. Okay. And if the gaps have been there, then they need to be filled. That's my contention. Okay. So with this I stop.
No, thank you so much. I think that's very, very valuable inputs that you've given, especially the impact of standards. We have been reading under that. And I think the government has taken proactive steps to start leading some of the standard committees. But we also know our friendly neighbor to the north has completely swamped all these standard bodies. It's no more West control. And all of you are facing that as you deal with the policy issues. Thank you so much. With that, we'll move to Sri Rajesh Gupta. Sri Gupta, over to you on your views on what are the challenges that we have in terms of having a future-ready network.
Thank you so much. Basically, what I agree, first of all, with your opening remarks that there is a digital divide, okay, and there is a appetite for voice and data and good digital reach in the rural areas as well. So, what from Universal Services Obligation Fund side, our aim is to provide the communication or telecommunication facilities in the rural and remote areas to bridge the digital divide. This is our objective. We work on various schemes to take this technology or digital connectivity in the rural and remote areas. And as you said that, yeah, during COVID we have seen the people who are devoid of this digital reach, they were actually devoid of proper education facilities or proper health facilities and for any other namesake. So now we are so addicted to the digital technologies, yeah. So and everybody has to have in the rural areas also has to have this particular digital reach. From USF side, basically we are working with 3 types of schemes presently. This USF was set up in around say year 2002. Initially our focus was to take this voice connectivity to all the rural areas. As Professor Gupta just said that now the scenario has changed, now 80% is data and very less focus on voice. So we also evolved and taken this this mobile connectivity also under our USO schemes, and then subsequently broadband connectivity also as an infrastructure requirement to be taken to the rural areas. So from USOF, basically what we currently are working on the 3 types of approaches. Number 1 we are working on a program called BharatNet to take this optical fiber connectivity or broadband connectivity. Sir has defined broadband very beautifully. How this broadband definitions and requirements are changing, yes. But this optical fiber is future ready. It can cope up with any data requirement. In my career, we started working with a small system like 8 Mbps, 8 megabit per second system on the optical fiber, which evolved to 34, then various other generation 140, then 565 PDS type of system, then SDS systems came, the equipment were replaced, fiber remained the same. We deployed this SDS, now further more DWDM systems and further newer and newer. We need to just change the end equipment, the optical fiber remains, gives us all the type of bandwidth possibilities. So this is the first is BharatNet program. The another is we are from USOF.
I don't see him.
Sir, I want to answer one question first, sir, if
He just wants to ask him something.
Sir,
Yes,
if you
please.
permit.
So with your permission.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm Mukesh.
Sir, there is a point of this network management system is a very key thing. So we have this program, recent program, is amended BharatNet program. The present has been, there is only a central lock, which was with it's a recovery set, two set, Delhi and Bangalore. So in this program, we have visualized this issue, and since each state will be unique, so we are planning to have a state lock also and a central. So as you said, if anything happens with central lock, state lock will have all the data evolution. So this issue already has been conceptualized by predecessor, because I joined only in August. But it
I
was-
think I'll try to be back at 12:30 again here. Okay. I think the event is for 1 hour, so I will come back again for.
Yeah, yeah.
We look forward to that.
I'll just see how.
Yeah.
Right. Telling about the other program of
Yeah, yeah.
universal services is to have this mobile connectivity to each and every part of the country. With that objective, a large number of schemes have been introduced by USOF, starting with in year 2019 for some border areas called 354 villages scheme. We identified certain villages where this border areas and other strategically important areas where this mobile reach was not there. Then subsequently aspirational district program we launched, and then left-wing extremist areas we started providing this mobile connectivity where this no other commercial operators were available in the country. And last year in 2021 and 22 we worked to see that whatever area in the country wherever there was no 4G or 3G coverage, we had a round of survey with our field officers and other agencies, and we found that out of around say 6 lakh inhabited villages in the country, about 5.75 lakh villages in the country are having this 3G or 4G coverage. So around say 25,000 villages were identified where there is no 3G or 4G coverage in the country. About say 95% coverage was found. So the another scheme of 4G saturation has been was conceived, and then Union Cabinet approved a scheme in July 2022 last year, which aims to have this 4G saturation, that is with any 4G mobile coverage has to be available pan-India in any part of the inhabited villages in the country. So that scheme has been approved, and then now we are working on that with the objective to take this, to install this 4G with Atmanirbhar technology, that is made in India technology, with the collaboration with C-DEP and TCS. They are developing and has been tested. And now with this 4G saturation would be achieved in the country wherever for the mobile signals. So that is the second scheme. Third, we are working on the island areas connectivities, that where for the islands like Andaman Nicobar Island and then Lakh. We completed one scheme of submarine cable connectivity from Chennai to Andaman Nicobar, and then another scheme which is also has been completed and is going to be inaugurated very soon, is between say Kochi and Lakshmi. So with that, this submarine cable, the type earlier they were, these two islands were only having this satellite connectivity, so they are also given this broadband or the high speed connectivity on optical fiber. So with all these things, basically what we are working from USOF to have this proper this telecom connectivity in all the areas of the country, and especially in the rural and remote areas. What I would like to emphasize little more on now BharatNet basically. BharatNet, we have been working since 2012. So I'll just take few minutes to take you to rewind the time and when this scheme was actually identified, the need was felt, as you all know, to remove the digital divide and take this connectivity, holistic connectivity in the rural areas. It was felt initially that our central PSUs like BSNL, Railtel and PGCI, they have optical fiber already laid, and using that fiber, if we extend only lay only incremental fiber to connect this Gram Panchayats, that would be faster rollout of this particular BharatNet network. So initially, phase 1 of the BharatNet was conceptualized with this particular objective, to lay only incremental cable from the existing cable of these 3 CPSUs. The second concept which was thought of about that all blocks in the country, they already have certain commercial connectivity, commercial operators are already there. So this BharatNet has been thought of only of a middle mile type of network, that is from the block to Gram Panchayat type connectivity. So under phase 1, survey was done from year 2012 to 2014 to know about what the incremental cable has to be laid using this CPSU's cable, and actual implementation began somewhere in year 2014 only. But that particular experience of laying optical fiber cable using this CPSU's cable, that was not very useful type of concept, because whatever say BSNL cable is running from exchange A to exchange B, and in between some Gram Panchayat was there, so we thought of only laying say incremental cable of say 1.5 cable from the existing cable which was running from exchange A to exchange B. But that cable which was laid from exchange A to exchange B was having certain say capacity 6 fiber or 12 fiber, and then the fiber characteristic of the fiber, then when it was laid, to find that fiber point of connectivity, wherever this connectivity was to be made from the newly laid cable to the old cable, finding that particular interconnection, means taking it to the proper joint. Basically at every 2 kilometers there has to be the cables are normally coming in a drum of 2 kilometers. So it was planned to take it to a particular joint box, but the cables were laid around say in 1995 onward, the 10 years, 12 years. We had all the diagrams also available, but actually finding that particular this particular joint where this cable is to be connected, the old and new cable, it was very difficult for us. Sometimes all new infrastructure was built along the road were expanded. The cable came in between, the existing cable came below the existing road, finding that particular joint box itself. So the project got little delayed, but this 1 lakh Gram Panchayats connectivity could be completed by the year end of 2017. And, but the modified strategy was thought in between. the Union Cabinet gave another approval in June of 2017. Finding out or learning from this all experience that this laying this incremental cable was not very actually useful type of this thing, and the Union Cabinet at that time, and based on this all experience of phase 1, gave another approval to have the all new connectivity from block to gram panchayat in phase 2. So what the another phase, the phase 2 was thought of or approved with all new cable from block to gram panchayat. That means the CPSU's existing cable was that concept was not taken into for the remaining gram panchayat connectivity. And another phase 2, another model, that is state-led model. Some states who had the capacity to or gave their willingness, they were also thought of to involve in the phase 2. So 8 states were finalized to take up the execution of BharatNet phase 2 under the state-led model. In addition, 2 states, Bihar and Punjab, that were done by our SPV, Bharat Broadband Network Limited, directly also, and some states, 3-4 states were given to BSNL. So with that phase 2 execution, and in addition, the remotest of the gram panchayats, around say 5,000 gram panchayats, where this optical fiber connectivity was not possible, they were also thought of to be given with the BSATs also. So that was the program in phase 2 to have the quicker rollout. This phase 2 was considered. The overall objective of this now, with this working on this particular model of phase 1 and phase 2, is almost complete with we have connected around say 2.04, 2 lakh and 4,000 around say gram panchayats so far, out of whatever 2,20,000 around gram panchayat work which has been taken up, barring around say 15,000-16,000 gram panchayats are pending, for which work has been taken up as of date. So that work is also targeted to be completed by December or by March next year. The important places, states where the work is left is in Tamil Nadu and Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, the state-led model mostly. So that work is also being targeted to be completed by December. Now, looking into all this phase 1 and phase 2, now the infrastructure requirement is there. The overall experience of this particular phase 1 and phase 2 has again been considered by department, and now there was a separate committee under Niti Aayog and BOT which studied all the implementation in 2019 and 20 and all, and they recommended to come out with a PPP type of program, in which the complete network with this PPP rollout in phase 3 was thought of, and we called out, we got a approval in 2021 and then called a tender also for the PPP implementation, but that did not succeed. In January 22, we did not get any bids for that particular program. And again, there was further consultations and complete churning within the department to take this BharatNet program further, sir. So I would like to share the 2 important difficulties which were faced in the implementation of BharatNet with overall experience of working for 7 to 8 years for the BharatNet program. Number 1, the utilization of the network remained low, and the second was the operation and maintenance of the network also was a challenge. Whatever the gram panchayats or the fiber was laid, the uptime of the network was low. So they were the 2 important challenges which was actually identified under this program. And after a lot of consultations and discussions and with industry consultation and the experience of the PPP program, in January 22 we did not get any bids for this. We found that for these 2 particular challenges, some question?
No.
For tackling these 2 particular challenges, that is about the utilization part and increasing the uptime of the network. For the utilization part, one pilot program was run, and that pilot program involved BharatNet Udyamis, and that program was initially a pilot of about 1 lakh connections, fiber to home connections was given to BSNL to be provided using BharatNet to the rural area. And we thought of, yes, the challenge that in the rural areas the paying capacity for this fiber to home connections was less in the rural areas. So some sort of say subsidy or some sort of incentive to be given so that these connections, the rural areas also, they can take up these all fiber to home connections. After the lot of deliberations and this particular program called in this program we to reduce the burden of initial installation cost, the capex cost, that is the initial ONT cost, whatever modem cost, and fiber cost from the wherever the BharatNet equipment from the Gram Panchayat overhead fiber is to be laid to the customer premises. So that particular installation cost of the fiber and the ONT cost, that was decided that this will be borne by user. And in addition, the backhaul cost, the bandwidth cost also, that was thought to be reimbursed to BSNL, which was given this pilot program. And BSNL started this program somewhere in the month of November last year, November 2022, and they could provide these 1 lakh initial 1 lakh connections on over BharatNet very fast with this particular program. And encouraged with this particular concept, this pilot program has been extended to 5 lakh, and we are near to that completing that particular 5 lakh this thing also. And the same has been considered by cabinet and to provide now even 1.5 crore connections using BharatNet in the next 5 years. So to increase the utilization with the involvement of BharatNet Udyamis, in this BharatNet Udyami, I forgot to tell you one more thing, that the cost of capex has been borne by USOF, and to make this Udyami self-sustainable, BSNL share 50% revenue, whatever revenue is earned, to Udyamis. Say, number one, customer need not to make any installation this payment, upfront payment, the customer need not to make. And since the internet backhaul also is subsidized by or provided by USOF, so the cost of this connection, initial cost of connection also has been reduced. Now there are many plans introduced by BSNL in the rural areas. So this cost has also been kept low. In urban area, we pay around say 700-800 rupees per month for a fiber to home connection, even in urban area, where we get in a particular area 200 to 250 connections also. The cost of actually capex for each connection is so high that in urban area that we pay 700-800 rupees per month. In the rural area, the density from one particular OLT installed, the connections we may not get 10 connections or 20 connections, even more 50 connections, not more than 50 connections at a place. So this particular this Udyami basically scheme, whatever has been conceptualized to make the Udyami self-sustainable, and this whole model, a sustainable model where these connection growth can also be increased with this particular matter. So for the increasing the utilization part, this particular scheme has been now in force and working, and another approval sort of now we intend to provide more than about 7.5 crore FTTH connection in the rural areas. Number two, for increasing the uptime of the network also, the scheme has been worked out that this whatever this linear on the whole network, whatever BharatNet network has been conceptualized so far was on a linear fashion. That is, the cable was laid from the block to Gram Panchayat in a linear way. Now this in this amended BharatNet program, this particular linear network is proposed to be converted into a ring, so that the uptime of the network actually is. So with that, I think this particular implementation has begun in that particular direction, and the cost and all have also been approved. So this particular implementation, further implementation, survey implementation, RFP finalization and all. My colleague Mr. Mukesh Gupta may speak a little bit about whatever we can share with you. So that I think in the next 3 years of the construction period, I think we intend to improve this BharatNet network from the operation and maintenance perspective also. The time of the network actually is improved, and the network sees the growth for this fiber to home connection in rural areas. So any question from my side?
Thank you. Just one question.
Yeah.
Who are these BharatNet Udyami? Are these MSMEs in the rural areas?
No. Actually, the BharatNet Udyami is basically, I just try to go a little bit more into the time. This BSNL had a concept basically of this franchisee schemes basically. Okay, so in urban areas also, same way other telecom operators also have certain franchisee scheme, where in the last mile they lay the cable and maintain the network in the last mile, right? BSNL basically had 3 or 4 types of models with them. First model where 50% of the revenue was between the ISP or BSNL and the franchisee was shared, in which franchisee installs this particular OLT in the BSNL premise, lay the cable, provide the ONT and maintain that particular connection. And 50% revenue by BSNL, which is actually for the rent for the particular place, you can say, and whether the internet backhaul or power or whatever charges. So with this, BSNL provided large number of connections, more than 20 or 25 lakh connections. And the same thing was thought of in more some restructured manner, which I just explained, where this capex cost is borne by user in the rural area. And these same franchisees are called BharatNet Udyami's. In this, the connections are not given free of cost. There is monthly rental which is to be borne by the customer, but there is no upfront installation cost which is borne by user.
So I have a question actually. I think BharatNet is one of the most exciting projects happening, and I think there have been challenges in BharatNet 1 and 2, like what you mentioned. So what steps are being taken to ensure that BharatNet 3 then is rolled out in a robust manner, that everything we spoke about in terms of quality is maintained, there are large players who come and implement it, and they make sure they implement it and don't walk away. How is that being worked out?
Yes, that's the really the proper time and giving energy on that particular implementation part. Where we are giving a set of, say, project governance guidelines from the DOT side. We have this cabinet has approved this project management agency work to BSNL one, and then many methods for the speedy implementation has been involved in the whatever agreement we have from DOT and BSNL project management. The targets actually given by cabinet also by the strict targets, and one thing, the first task to us as on date is to finalize our RFP and come out with this particular implementation. There will be project governance committees at the state level, at the district level, with the involvement of the state government also, with DOT teams, BSNL, the other agencies, state government agencies also, like state transcos also, and whatever this underground utilities. So all those, we have conceived certain committees at the district level and the state level, which will have this oversee about this right of way or the quick implementation of the project.
And the state level.
At the central level also we'll have the steering level and the other empowered committees which will take decisions wherever required. And the management board of the CSNL also has been given powers. So what I would request that this all implementation methodologies are under finalization.
Sure.
We are thought of and we are coming up. That's all. So if any more suggestions are there, we'll try to.
I'm sure for Professor Vigneshwara, the BharatNet Udyami will be an interesting proposition for you to look at subsequently. Because that's his area of research.
The demand side.
Yes.
Looking at demand.
We can connect you with the people,
Sure. Thank
who
you.
are actually dealing with at DOT level also. We'll connect you for your guidance.
Fine, sir. I'll be happy to. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Shri Gupta. We'll move to Srimati Dave, and you're controlling the purse strings for everything that Shri Gupta was talking about. So it's important to hear your views and your advice on what are the challenges that one should be looking at, and how do we create a future-proof network.
See, Mr. Gupta has already briefed you all about the USF and the various schemes that are going on in USF. One very important thing is that whatever network we are establishing, we should be able to maintain the network. Because unless we are able to maintain the network properly, the whole idea of establishing the network is gone. The same happened with phase 1 and phase 2 we learned the lessons, and now we are trying to rectify. We are employing different technology, we are trying to build the rings. And also another thing is that there are some places where however like efforts you put for the maintenance, but the Indian geography is such, like there will be sudden floods, there will be sudden avalanches, landslides, and whatever work you have done of laying the fiber or laying aerial fibers or laying underground fibers, many times the whole road itself gets wiped away and fiber also goes away. So we have to also towards alternate technology. So we are also along with the BharatNet, we are also establishing VSATs also wherever it is not accessible or it is not possible to bring the fiber. Now, one more thing that with VSAT, like recently there were some floods in cities, and what we noticed, there were so many areas which were totally unconnected due to the washing away of the bridges and the roads. And now we want to ship the VSATs. We are not able to ship the VSATs because the weather has become so bad. Though we had arranged VSAT equipments terminals, we were not able to ship. So we have to also work towards a sort of disaster management plan also in such situations where we have to make some alternate arrangements, like VSAT equipment should be made available at some district level or some taluka level, so that at least one equipment or one phone, so that immediately some sort of connectivity can be established. In this case, Army and the whole defense forces were with us, and they tried to help us out, and they helped us a lot in reconnecting the fibers by taking the fiber across the rivers, which normally a telecom person cannot do. So these type of situations also we have to think of and worked out solutions. Similarly, like when the accident happened at Balasore, though it was not a difficult site, but still we could not reach the equipment. Equipment could not be reached because of the VIP moment, the priority of giving help to the needy persons involved in the accident, and the VIP movement, and the movement of the railway officers, of the state officers. So we have to work on all these situations also, that there should be some plans which we are now working towards those things, that in such type of situation what we can do. So one thing is how to handle the disaster situations. Though we are providing the network, we are doing everything for the network. So these things are very important to be taken care of. Now second thing is this, though we have laid the fiber and we are going to involve BSNL in maintaining, but still I feel when such a big network is laid, whether it is mobile we are involving private operators, they are getting involved. But it so happens that for fiber, only government is the agency which is involved. And what we have noticed till now, that anything which is with one operator or with one agency, government and agency, cannot succeed. For any project to be successful, which is meant for the public, the involvement of other agencies is very important, like state governments. Because when we are going for the utilization, we think we have got BharatNet, which so far has been doing very well. But the thing is, for the future also, like if the fiber has to be properly utilized, there have to be schemes from the state governments also which make use of the fiber and they make it successful. Because when we give it to individual person, the usage would be very limited. But when we give it to the state government, they can utilize it for so many things. Now education is coming in a big way, remote education. We have seen in COVID. After that, there are models like governments are trying, like I have seen in Gujarat, the state government is actually giving lectures, broadcasting the lectures, which are going either through VSAT or they are going through the laid network, already laid network. So these things are very important, like health. Health is a state subject, and health, providing health care in villages is very important. Now government is providing apps also, they are giving so many schemes. So if the state government is also involving in the project, so like because you are into this research and the C-DEP is doing all these type of activities, so I feel you can take this as a study and see how state governments, UT governments can be involved. Because when government, central government, we approach them, then they will say all the departments have sufficient money, you approach them and ask them to take the connection. But when we actually approach them, they will say they would already have got a connection from some private operator, and they will say, no, this connection will not take. We have already got a connection from private house. So these are the things which really need some sort of research from the some academic institutions, some research institutions, and they can be really work out some ways how the state governments can be brought, because this is really one of the challenges that central government is feeling while promoting the
Onboarded 8 states, ma'am, but in those 8
Yeah,
states also
but-
states themselves.
Yeah, there are 8 states, but there also they are struggling
Is
to
for the
provide
increasing the utilization,
to
the
provide
only
the
state
utilization.
SPVs, they are not able to influence other.
And now this is rural part. When we come
departments.
to the urban part also, in fact now we are finding that future network, future ready network. So when we go to in the city also, if you see, there are multi-stories where you will find there is a problem of signal. Because if the height of the building exceeds 28 floors, 150 floors, 25 floors, then there is a connectivity issue there also. So this in-building solutions is very much required. So for that also, government has made efforts. MoHUA has brought changes in the guidelines.
Now the ROW policy
The
also.
there are changes in the ROW policy. There are changes in the MoHUA urban development. They have also brought out changes in the in-built to provide the in-building solutions. And there also we are making one more effort, because it's very difficult to force the builders to provide the in-building solutions unless we introduce some sort of norm. So we are now bringing out some study on the rating of the buildings, some policy we will be bringing out. So that is still under consideration, so nothing has been done on that. So that is also very important, that because inside the house, like I am noticing even in my house in Bombay, I don't get the connection.
I'm struggling for connectivity here.
Yeah, exactly. So everywhere.
I thought there is a
connectivity
German.
becomes no.
It is not by design.
This is another issue. So different technologies like Wi-Fi, or they also play a big role. Similarly for rural and unconnected and border areas, satellite also plays a big role. So we are going with new. I don't know how far we will be successful, because when everybody sees the business model, then they will see the revenues, and when you really have to provide connectivity to the villages, then without state and government help, I don't know whether how far it will be successful. So that part also is one thing which has to be worked upon. So though they claim ki satellite will come, it will revolutionize the services in a big way. But we really don't know, because when it comes to villages, or even don't leave the villages, you go to the remote unconnected areas of India, like in deserts or in mountains. So I don't know how far the people will be ready to pay the charges of those satellite connectivity.
Including the equipment, including the CP.
If the equipment is very expensive, then suppose somebody installs and then plays, either they provide fixed wireless or fixed wired line connectivity or whatever way Wi-Fi. But still, I feel it's something to be studied upon, like how we can form some business models for such type of scenarios.
What's your experience of handling the state government? Because as you rightly said, I have handled multiple departments in government of India. State only remembers center when they need center. When the center needs them, they don't.
Actually, we see throughout I have been working in MTN and in Bombay. So I was into operations and handling different departments there, IT and then broadband, planning, call centers and mobile also. So that was a totally different type of working. But when I went to Gujarat for 1 year, I was working there as in DOT, and we had to interact with state government. And sometimes we had to listen to this, like for some schemes, if we are going, like say for example ROW or some other projects of Government of India. So then we had to listen, see, don't try to impose this. It is as if central government is imposing state government or forcing state government to implement this. So like it was a difficult task to work with them, and officers from our higher officers from DOT had to intervene to get these things implemented. So ultimately they used to implement, and they used to implement it very well, but the thing is there used to be initial inhibition that this is a central versus state subject. So still the state governments, though they feel it's very important to have the digital connectivity in their state, and Gujarat is a very progressive state, still there was this feeling why we should listen to central government and
ultimately beneficiaries are the public actually.
Exactly.
Okay. And the population, which is the
And the thing
states,
is, they
states,
themselves planned
institutions
the
in the
connectivity to 100 villages by planning towers and getting some special funds. Ultimately, that project they could not take because central government was already going ahead with that project, so they had to abandon it. But they realized the importance. But then this central versus state thing comes into picture, and
So also, there was the other issue of ROW, which is largely to do with states. I think some of it is getting resolved because of the Gati Shakti initiative.
so for RAW, you know what happened? We have already formed a policy from
Right,
Government
right.
of India.
My question was actually
So-
something else. So that's kind of getting solved, although there are still hiccups in
No,
it.
there are a lot of.
There are a lot of hiccups. So, but the problem that you mentioned about the support from state for offtake of the network, I don't know if that can be put onto the Gati Shakti
It has
platform
been-
also.
See, BSNL whole, like whatever government has planned, BSNL network, whole network is in production. And we hope that in future, some of the states which are not doing the state-led model, they will start utilizing the fiber.
Right.
So, but still, till now, see, what I have seen, like in Gujarat also, the state governments are also laying their own fiber. The public sectors are laying their own fiber. Central government is laying its own fiber through USOF. So the whole thing has to be actually synergized. And there has to be some way by which people can, like the authorities can use each other's fiber. So still, that concept, I feel it needs a lot of push. Rajesh will agree to it, or he may have his own comments.
I
too
know a
often
little bit,
because he has
yes.
more experience. I have just recently joined.
Ma'am,
few
I'd
months
like to
back.
just add to one thing, ma'am, here, that this state support agreements were there in BharatNet in phase 1 and phase 2 also. They were, say, for the, but there were difficulties in actually implementing those particular provisions in the agreements. There are two types of agencies. One is state agency. There are certain central agencies also, like gas pipelines, and these all are the various ONGC, GAIL, they are the agencies. And forest is altogether, it is both some reserve forest and some sanctuaries. They're getting the ROW, there are long procedures, and similarly NH and NHAI also, very tedious process and procedures. So those all have, they take time, and there are also provisions, legal provisions, and their provisions also to be respected. You cannot impose that yes, this is the only work and you give this immediate approvals and all. We have to work closely with them and get their procedures also.
So, in fact, you were talking about USOF also. So, one of the questions that keeps coming up is how long will government keep supporting, especially the operational part of it. So, what are the future financial models that needs to be there so that funding happens, financing of these networks happens? Because at some point in time, the government will also ask, how long do I pay? Especially in context of what Rajesh just mentioned, which is the density is very low and therefore there's a bucket issue. So if there isn't enough number of subscribers, then the cost per subscriber goes up.
May I answer?
Yeah, you can answer, or Mukesh can answer. He
No,
can
I
yes
just,
or no.
no, he didn't compliment if I no, initially whatever this concept was thought of, that there will be sufficient utilization and this network would become, say, self-sustainable. Under the state-led model also, for the operation and maintenance, initially 3 years period was thought of. That this operation maintenance support would be given to the state for 3 years, and then the network becomes self-sustainable. There will be sufficient utilization model of the network, and from USOF we work for a net OPEX type of model. During these 3 years also, whatever OPEX they actually do, we provide the net OPEX, means whatever revenue they earn, we subtract the OPEX minus revenue, only we support from the now since this
Something like VGF.
VGF, yeah, net OPEX or VGF, you can say. This model we are approving for these states. And under this amended BharatNet program, we have taken more enabling decisions on the similar lines for another 10 years.
So 10 years of operation.
Sorry for interruption, Mr. Krishnewal has to leave. So
Sure.
let us.
I'll be visiting the test bed here in IIT
Oh,
Delhi.
lovely. Please, we
अभी चलते हैं साथ में.
look forward to your views. Thank you.
We will go after
We
lunch.
can also.
इनका कुछ टाइम फिक्स किया हुआ है। मुझे भी जाना था, बट दैट डे वी हैड अ मीटिंग ना, उसके बाद मैंने
Yeah.
So
So you come back now
Yeah, I'll come.
for the lunch?
Yeah.
Yeah, आप पूछ लीजिए.
your views.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Thank you, Dr. Jaideep. In your opening remarks, you very much touched upon the entire spectrum of issues that we are grappling with. Some of these are already on our table, some are maybe in the works. So some issues are with TRAI, because DOT basically seeks recommendations from TRAI before taking any policy decision. This is as per the TRAI Act. So you talked about the revenue share with the telecom operators, that is the OTT service providers. So basically the large traffic generators. So this is already there in the news and it is being very widely debated currently.
Very much in the news.
So it's very much in the news. I would not like to take any side at this point of time, because
issue is still to be decided at the government level. But yes, there is a need because the telcos, on one hand, they are not increasing the tariffs due to whatever reasons. There is no floor as per the TRAI guidelines because tariff is in the domain of TRAI. There is no floor here in the country, and because of whatever reasons which all of you are aware, I may not touch upon those issues. The tariffs are very, very low. Per GB data rates are the lowest in the world at 0.12 US dollars. And these business models are not sustainable in the long run. We are staring at a duopoly mainly. If something is not done very immediately. So the municipalities, you are talking about fiberization, you are talking about this, but there are no policies. So since you are the policy think tank and you take upon yourself the responsibility of designing policies for a future-proof or future-ready digital network or digital economy for the country, so you should take upon yourself to see that the municipalities don't milk the telcos the way they are doing currently. Every tower that they have to put, they have to pay rent on an annual basis, and these rents are very exorbitant in many cases. Then the reinstatement charges. Nobody is laying fiber. Why? Because the reinstatement charges being to be paid to the municipalities and the municipal corporations are very, very high. So they are currently making do with the radio media. Now the radio media, as you know, is not very reliable and doesn't give the bandwidth that you need with 5G in place. And going ahead, in another 4 or 5 years time, we will be looking at 6G. The bandwidth requirement will increase 100 times more. The equipment which is currently at the core will be pushed to the edge. So we will need to increase the bandwidth dramatically. And one thing which ma'am talked about regarding that landslides and the Indian geographical terrain and all. So we need to have alternate technologies in place to take care of any such calamities. Now there are technologies, but these technologies are costly at this point of time. There is one free space optical communication. There are E-bands, there are V-band radio equipments. They are already always there, but somehow we need to push the local manufacturing. We somehow need to incentivize our local manufacturers so that we don't need to depend upon the imports. So there has to be policy to somehow induct these alternate technologies, maybe 5%, maybe 10% on initially, but it has to be mandated that yes, every telco will have to procure 10% alternate technology. And then if you need a network which is future ready, which is resilient, then you will have to have the diversity of media. Currently, only around 35% of the BTSs are fiberized. So that means there is only a single media, that is the radio media. There is no fiber. So 100% fiberization is required. Now how that can be achieved? There are 3 operators on a single tower, but you will find the tower is fiberized, but the BTSs are not fiberized. Meaning one operator is having fiber, but is not sharing with others. So there are to be rules in place that mandate that yes, if there is fiber already reached, so it makes economic sense that that fiber needs to be shared with others. There should not be any other requirement to lay fiber for the other operators. They should be allowed to share and on a reasonable cost sharing basis. So these are things which need to be put in place. And then we are looking at everything going into the cloud. Now currently there are no regulations for the cloud service providers. It's a huge industry. government doesn't get any revenue out of it because there is no license fee, no AGR burden on them. But on the other hand, they are milking the customers like anything because there are no interoperability rules. Once you choose a particular cloud service provider, you can't go away because there is no interoperability. So there is sort of vendor lock-in. Interoperability rules are to be put in place. The cloud service providers, they need to be regulated because today a customer, if he is a small customer, the cloud service provider might be fleecing him. But then he has no other way to go to any other operator because of the lack of interoperability. And then there is no ombudsman or there is no arbitrator in case of high charges or any issues between the cloud service provider and his client. So cloud services need to be regulated. In what form and what way, I can't say, but yes, there is a definite need of regulating the cloud services. You talked about the standardization. Yes, that's a very, very important issue. There are less than 1% of contributions from the country, and all these contributions are coming from the country in our north, as you rightly mentioned. Now, how that can be achieved? We have to somehow make a system which is sustainable. Now, how that can be done? This is a very costly affair of putting our standards. Suppose there is a 2 years window for the 6G standards. Now that 2-year window is to be effectively utilized. How that can be done? There are to be stipends to be paid to the PhD students. They should work on standardization throughout their 2 years in the institutes. Who will do this? So India is, that way you can say we are still developing country, but somehow if you want to leapfrog, then we have to invest into these areas. Very huge investment is required. Somehow government does it because the private sector, they are not bothered. They will buy the technologies from the Nokias and Ericssons of the world. They are not bothered as long as their commercial interests don't get hampered. But the country suffers at the end. So the country has to take a lead, has to invest into these areas. Currently TSDSI, that is spearheading the India standards body. But I don't think they are doing just a so-so type of a job. They have to be very aggressive.
Some things to tell, let you complete.
They have to be very aggressive, and TSDSI, they have to take the leadership role. Currently, it is just, I don't know, it's some sort of an organization, but we have seen over the last several years since its inception, we have not been able to make our mark. On the other hand, in terms of 1M, 2M, we have around 15 to 17% of our contributions from India. Now that is largely because of C-DOT's contribution in 1M, 2M. But in case of ITU and 3GPP, our contributions are negligible, so to say. Honorable Minister has spoken so many times during the last IMC. He said that at least 1/6 of the contributions in 6G should be from India. But there is no roadmap as to how we can achieve that. How we can pull in the resources from the academia, the researchers, the institutes. They should all pull their resources and see to it that we achieve it. But there is no overarching body which can really give a push to this particular objective. Then we talked about IoT and M2M. DOT came out with the policy in 2022 in February 22 of registration. So we have around 233 M2M registered service providers. DOT has taken an initiative. Our earlier secretary, he wrote to all the chief secretaries of the states he wrote to 13 government ministries and departments, secretaries of those departments like power, then railway and all, that you have to procure your services only from M2M registered service providers. Now, how an M2M registered with DOT service provider is different from unregistered? Because the one who is registered has to abide by certain security guidelines. He is bound by so many other conditions. We were discussing the exponential growth in the IoT sector, but the entire data, see these smart lights in your rooms, in your homes, these are all governed by someone who is sitting outside the country. So you are connecting the smart lights with your Wi-Fi password. So that fellow who was sitting outside, he is now in your room. So we have to have policies in place that all these platforms, all these applications, they reside in the country.
Absolutely.
So these are some of the things which I wanted to share. Then you talked about this fiber. Rajesh was talking about the fiber, that fiber has remained unchanged. I have a different view on that as well, because now we are looking at multi-core fibers. Earlier we had single-core fibers. Now in the same dia we can have more number of cores. So we are developing those technologies. These are innovations which are happening in the country, but somehow these are not getting incentivized. So there has to be a method, there has to be a policy framework to incentivize these innovations in our technology or the telecom space. Then this exponential growth in IoT M2M. Now this cannot happen without IPv6. As all of us know, there is a address constraint in the IPv4. It's only around 2.3 billion, whereas in IPv6 it is of the order of 10 to the power 38. So you can say pretty much you can countless. So we have to necessarily go on to IPv6 while our ISPs, why our TSPs, though India is at the forefront. If you talk about the ethnic data, we with India with 78% is at the top of the world. Is the country top of the world, but it is largely because of the MNOs. Because the MNOs, they have huge subscriber base, all their networks are IPv6. Reliance Jio came up with only IPv6, they don't have IPv4, and you know their subscriber base. Then slowly this Airtel and Voda Idea, they are also 90% plus IPv6 compliant. But you talk of BSNL, you talk of other ISPs in single digits. So there is a need to educate the people that this netting business, address translation, this is not going to secure our networks. So if we have to have a secure network in place, then IPsec, which is a mandatory requirement or the protocol in the IPv6, we have to have our all equipment, all customer premise equipments to be IPv6 enabled. So this is one requirement currently. Even though the equipments are capable, but they are not configured because lack of education. The technicians, they are comfortable with the numeric port, this IPv4, whereas the IPv6 is hexadecimal, so somewhat unfamiliar to them. Maybe those are the reasons. So there is a need to educate the technicians because the customers, they don't bother whether it is IPv4 or IPv6. But there is a need, and then the billing systems in the ISP's network, they also need to be upgraded to take care of the IPv6 thing. Then this security aspect we are talking about in IoT. So TEC is doing a lot of work in that respect. They have already come up with certain technical reports. One is security by design, and then security should not be an afterthought. So the equipment has to be secure by design. Then there are certain guidelines which are to be followed by all the M2M service providers. One is say there should not be any default password. There should be a method or mechanism to manage the vulnerabilities. So all these things, I think currently we have already issued the advisory. So there has to be a mandate that this is to be followed through an act or a government rule. Currently these are all advisory. But if we go to this IoT M2M, worldwide you can see there is a lot of spectrum, unlicensed spectrum. But in the India, we have 3 megahertz unlicensed band, 865 to 868 megahertz. Whereas in US and all, 915 to 923 band is also unlicensed. And many of these smart meters and RF devices which act as sensors for collecting data, they work in these unlicensed band. So there is a need to study the utilization of the existing unlicensed band, that is 865 to 868, and if there exists a need, then additional bands should also be unlicensed. There is a recommendation from TRAI, but DOT has not been able to take a decision on that because there is no study on the date to exactly point out whether there is any congestion in the existing band or no. But I think the day is not far from us when these 3 megahertz spectrum license exempt band will fall additionally short of the requirement. So there is a need to take up that as well. You talked about the network quality and all. Yes, government is already dealing with it. There are building bylaws and all. So we are trying to, government is already seized of this issue. We are working with MOVA and others to somehow see that when a new building comes up, there are ducts in place. Just you have ducts and pipes for your electricity cables. There should be ducts for fibers as well. So all these things, and then this in the cities also frequent digging activities keep on happening. So to avoid the damage to the underground assets of telecom operators, maybe fibers, maybe jelly-filled cables. So there also needs to be dedicated ducts as in the developed countries. So government is also working on that, but there is a need to have a policy in place that the states must follow these. Whenever a new road is constructed, they must keep aside a particular trench for these assets. With this, I conclude.
No, that's extremely, I think, valuable inputs. The smart cities were supposed to have multi-utility ducts laid out across the city, but I don't know whether any of them have successfully laid it out. So it definitely is a concern, and I think a lot of very important points were raised. Madam, you had some points before.
This
Yes,
ducts, we are now working on that also. The national highways and state highways, they are actually NHAI is now building the ducts. So whenever they are requested, they lay the ducts along with the wherever constructions are going on. So for the others also now we are working towards framing some sort of policy. Then there was a decision that we work on that. But maybe come out with some policy or maybe interact with those concerned ministries to ensure that whenever the highways are being constructed, ducts are made a part of that. And BMC, like so these municipal authorities, they are also trying to provide ducts because they also don't want that now the whole city should be duct as and when people want. So there is a change in fact, though formal laws etc. have to be, rules etc. have to be implemented for that. But yes, duct is a very big requirement which is required because every now and then we find the whole city is getting duct for either by some utility or by some other utility, and in the process, they damage each other's utilities also. So, in fact, to avoid that, government had, like DOT had come out with an app also for call before you dig. So we are trying to popularize the app because the agencies are not very comfortable in using the app, and they really sometimes don't inform. Like they were supposed to just keep informed that they are going to dig at so and so place after so many days, so that all are informed and they take care of their utilities at the time of digging. But somehow that app is still to be popularized, so their efforts are being made for that. Then regarding Gati Shakti, when he was also telling the fiber part, actually in Gati Shakti when we try to trace the map all the fibers, BSNL and BBNL whatever they have tried to do it, but the private agencies are not at all ready to map their fibers. So in fact they say when you need, you tell us, we'll inform you. So the idea was when whoever needs, they can approach, get the permissions and have an access by designing their network. So that is still the private operators, they have some sort of inhibition in sharing their data. They don't want to share the data. In fact, it is other way around. When they wanted something, we asked BBNL to share that part of information with them to plan their network, but they are not ready. In fact, they went and saw on the map also, but their information they are not ready to share. And regarding standardization now, see, it's a very late beginning by the Government of India, but the beginning has been made. We are trying to promote standardization now in a big way. In fact, for IPR also, we are taking up the matter with DPIIT to simplify the process, because it has been told it is easier to file patents in in foreign countries than in India. So we are trying to come out with some policy with them, and we are trying to promote startups through TTDF and other research and development through TTDF, and in other ways through different funds. In fact, for this TTDF is one of the funds which has been set up through US work only. So like as he rightly said, academia and DSI is the only institution, and for 6G we have tried to form an alliance also, and we are trying to see that as many as patents and standards can be filed through India. So it's a slow process. We have to make big strides to really achieve the targets, but I think government is trying to do a lot of efforts in this regard. In fact, for testing of the products, we are now trying to come out with one policy through BSNL for POC policy. So whenever somebody makes their products, they can test it in BSNL. So efforts are there. Yes, still lot more efforts are needed, but we have started. And in fact, if you can also suggest some ways where we can make, we can involve more people in the standards making, and
Where there is a will, there is a way.
promote.
So India has achieved 107 medals in the ACR this time.
No, now
Because they put their efforts into that.
CG also,
So-
some efforts are showing. Though we have to go a long way, but still we are fine. And another thing is that support from government side, yes, we are thinking into that, so maybe that also we will see. Because you know, when you go to standard bodies, see, if you are participating remotely, it is very difficult to like really promote your case. Like for this ubiquitous, I know like the teams had to make lot of efforts when we have got this ubiquitous, one of the user scenarios included in the 6G standards.
Right.
So in fact lot of efforts were made, and then recently we came to know that some study is going to, like, it was a planned study, and India's presence is required because somebody is opposing ubiquitous. So we had to immediately rush a team. So like, and if we depend on the private sector, so the support is required, like from the government side also. So we are looking into all these aspects, and maybe some more efforts are required from both the public-private bodies as well as from the government side.
Yeah, no, because he is in a hurry actually. All that I want to say is, he mentioned about our Asian Games performance. My observation, maybe a little bit personal also, you being the DDG of the new technology, I'm very sure you'll get the medal in this field also. I'm very sure of it actually.
Thank you so much.
But you'll be coming back now? Not try, you have to come back.
It depends upon Mr. Saran.
So, continuing with the proceedings, I think these have been very, very interesting conversations. So, moving to you, Mr. Gupta, I had a question for Mr. Toshniwal, but unfortunately, if I pose the question to you, is that if you look at it from a standards perspective, one part is where the government is going and setting up the standards. The second part is, are we manufacturing up to that standards? So a typical example that's coming to your mind is that most of the fiber manufacturers are manufacturing type B fiber. Now pretty soon they'll be so obsolete that we'll start importing again. And then all the existing capacity will be gone. How do we make sure that we push these existing fibers, these fiber manufacturers, into at least an A1 fiber, so that they are ready when the country needs it? So over to you.
Good afternoon. Lot of suggestions have come in this regard. These standards were earlier not permitting this A1, A2 fiber in this cable, which was available with TEC. So now the matter is under consideration. We will include A1, A2 also in this, so that there is no loss of opportunity for any manufacturer. Since this cable will be purchased by the project partners or RFP partners who will be private companies, so we will be specifying to them the standards, so which includes A1, A2 also. So that there is no loss of opportunity.
So my point is slightly different. It is like we are continuing with the ambassador car.
No, it's not like that, Ambassador Kasi. Sir, we
The
are
foreign
not.
cars come in and
We are
buy
not.
foreign
See, we have to see the present and the existing conditions also. We are not. Nobody is at disadvantaged position. Everybody is at the same level. If
There
it,
are
if
one or two
sir,
manufacturers only.
I will give you
Production
two.
capacity
I will
is
give you
less.
two logics also, sir.
What we studied.
Sir, I will give you two more logics also. Since our private agency has to construct the network and maintain for the next 10 years. Suppose theoretically, if there is not much of a price difference, maybe differential maybe if less than 5% or 10%, and if it is more utility, and why a person will buy a substandard? If you answer this question, yes, sir.
So
So
what you say is
I
market
see,
dynamics
I
will
see,
be
because it's a private thing, we are not inhibiting, we are everything. Only the consideration was if there would have been a large price differential between the two. If you say ki it is more, life is more, or the losses will be less, the operator has to maintain a 99% network. So he will take a techno-economic. So let the market process decide.
Absolutely.
So we are not inhibiting or barring anybody. So that's what we have
So there
thought
are
of
few
internally.
manufacturers who have started.
So
Not all.
we will be,
They
the
still
TEC
prefer
will
to
be
go the
revising
fibers.
spec
Is it
immediately.
now what we are
Timelines
seeing?
Already the process
Yes.
are initiated.
So I
We cannot
think it is,
restrict it.
yeah.
So we are not
I
restricting,
think
we have created an enabling environment which was not there. And if there is no see, market understands the private person has to maintain for 10 years at the same SLA, otherwise he will be leaving penalty. So let the market forces decide. And we are yet to have a industry consultation which we are planning in October most probably, because November we are trying to have one RFP at least in place.
No, also, in many meetings I heard that lots of dark fiber is lying, already buried. DOT will know much better that if you have the 24 cores are there, only 12 cores are leaked. So 12 cores are still sitting there. I have no idea whether this inventory has been taken by DOT into account. I also do not know at this point of a time whether fiber is sufficient to take that kind of a data. Whether it's it can take dense WDM or not, or it will only take the normal data or something like that. I have no idea, but DOT must be having some atlas for that.
The professor, when you stepped out, what was being mentioned is that there was an attempt to make a marketplace for fiber.
Yeah.
But apparently the private sector did not share the data. So so we are all in the dark. None of us are lit right now.
I will throw some light.
Yes.
Like Rajesh mentioned earlier, at that time the whole network was designed based on the incremental fiber. And now since we have to have a future ready network, so we need to have a robust network with proper standards and specifications. So this amended BharatNet program, we will be considering even replacement of the old hired fiber also. So that instead of one fiber or what you're saying, the data sometimes incremental, or there is only one fiber from GP, and then that is split or sometimes shared between GP. So whole this network is to be reconstructed. With whatever was laid through BBNL for this project will be used, and apart from that, whatever was taken on rent will also be replaced in phases. So now the next challenge is in BharatNet phase 1 and 2, we could plan 2 lakh. We planned for 2,19,000 GPs, and still we have covered made 2,04,000 service ready. Rest the BSL and other state-led agencies are completing that. So the balance 47,000, which could not be covered in phase 1 and phase 2, are the really difficult, most difficult ones. So even the Ministry of Finance have recommended to use this for these at least places instead of investing, if there is possibility of reuse. So let us try to use other telecom fibers. So in that context only, like Madam was telling, this Gati Shakti portal, BSNL, PGCIL and Railtel cables are mapped. So internally, when we tried to have contact with them, they said we will not give the shared data. You tell us where you want cable, we will just tell how far is our cable. So that exercise, one iteration with one of the telecom operators has happened, but still we are not able to make a very, you can say, techno-economic justification of that proposal. So still our internal discussions are going on. So this, I think, as academy or research, this you should also take up for the interest of a country. At least this kind of data or sharing should be available or something.
So if we just quickly butt in here, that, the government has the power to make things mandatory, and you hold the license, which can have its rules modified at any point in time, and they have to be adhered to. Is that under consideration? Is that something that you are looking at?
See, that
No,
is
we
not
don't
under
force
my
things.
domain, so
We
ma'am,
don't
ma'am,
force
maybe
things.
better to answer
We
this
try to
question.
get the things as much as possible through consensus. So in this line also, mostly we will make a lot efforts and see how we
Because Professor Gupta is saying it is definitely an issue.
Actually,
A lot of fiber
this
is
was,
buried.
like when I was in Gujarat, this was being considered, maybe we should do this, but we should do this and we have, like we will do this, there are different things. Yes, we can't force just things on people, so it has to be through consensus. Maybe Rajesh can say some more.
No, there are many such actually requirement, but the licensed operators actually they work on the techno-commercial considerations. Whatever they have invested in laying fiber, if they share it with others, their business model also are likely to suffer.
Sure.
That's why they have apprehension and they work within the license conditions. So you are right. These things are being thought of about, especially during disaster time or some other. We made it mandatory to have the inter-roaming, the nets open, at least at that particular times. Maybe the time will come, we make it mandatory.
But
Same
are you
as,
not, government is contemplating to change the old Telegraph Act to incorporate all this
And we are coming up with the new technology.
new Telegraph?
It is under
Dr.
consideration.
Bhattacharya, Professor Vignesh has a class, so.
Sure.
No, sir, I would like to have some 2-3 points for him.
Yes, please, sir.
Yeah. Since he is looking after this public information network, so BharatNet Udyami is one of the key elements for the success of this program for utilization. I will share my personal experience because I joined DOT recently. Prior to this, I was Principal General Manager in Tripura State. So 2 years I was there. So I was doing the execution part there. So Tripura government gave us a project. You put OLT and Wi-Fi in 583 villages. The first challenge was 583 were not ready. Somehow then after discussions, they said, okay, you do it 300 in first phase, whatever is convenient is the approach. So then as normal time took for getting this OLT and other equipment, Wi-Fi equipment. So when we got them, then there was a challenge, how we will roll out in villages. So there were, like Rajesh has told, we had some of the partners with us. So when we had a discussion first round, so they said they will pick and choose, but not come for all the villages. So their idea was that there will be not enough demand, so they will not be able to sustain that. So somehow we divided that into some clusters, 17, 18 clusters, and they said, no, there will be some good villages and some, and you have to somehow manage that. So that kind of study is done, because even this is right now, the government is also, the indications were from ministers, we have to promote this. How this BNU's model will be successful, because ideally if you see this intended program is for not only for 2.64 gram panchayat, but also to cover the 3.8 inhabited villages also. So maybe in gram panchayat at least one BNU should be there. So we need around 2,64,000. Presently it is around 39,000 something, but that too in the segregated.
So with your permission, Mr.
Partners
Gupta,
are
can
about
we-
8,000, 9,000.
Can we just hear Professor Vignesh before he leaves, and we'll come back to you.
And second, one more thing. Second thing was with my experience in Tripura, when everything was in place, there was no demand. So my team, even I have visited 2-3 villages. The psychology of the customer is like, what is FTTH? They know only one thing, that is mobile. And then they say, there was one more argument, FTTH will be at home, but we are most of the time out in fields, what we will do? So this psychology, unless this psychology and the customer experience
Mukesh,
changes.
I'm sorry to just interrupt you here. You may be right with respect to your Tripura experience, but our experience in DOT from start of the pilot project has been little different, and we got these figures, that is getting this 1 lakh connections in rural areas very fast we were envisaging around 6 months time to reach to 1 lakh, but these connections were provided by BSNL within a period of 2.5 to 3 months.
No, no,
And
I will
one
supplement
minute,
that.
1 minute. The second is the average data consumptions. We studied that pattern also. Average data consumption on each of these fiber to home connection provided in the rural areas, that is the tune of around say 165 to 170 gigabyte, terabyte say per month, which is in urban areas around say 200. So there is equal appetite or the requirement or the use in the rural areas as in the urban areas. So the fiber to home, whereas in the mobile, the average data consumption is around 15 GB in a month. The average data consumption in the fixed line broadband is very high, to the tune of say around more than 10 times. So the requirement is there. Maybe some education may be required, and but in the rural areas and almost in all rural areas, there is good awareness also, and there are use cases also which are demonstrated with number of use cases, number of teams were sent by DOT in these all areas, which studied this BNU and at different places wherever pilot was launched. Around say team of 20 DDG level officers visited all these different places and different states, and they come out with a large number of use cases in agriculture, in education, in business, e-commerce business, and some jewelry business, some number of use cases were found in the rural areas. So fiber to home demand per se is there in the rural areas, and same is the data consumption. These figures also are demonstrating. The only thing is good quality of service, good O&M network, good ring type of network, which we have emphasized in the now amended pattern. If that is implemented with the good support of the state, as you said, state should also be good partners in all this particular project. So that also we are taking up. We will be having a separate state support agreement also this time with all these states. A good knock also, state-wise knock also. Complete rings have been planned. So, but this all network is planned as per the future requirements.
Rajesh, just to supplement you,
I
will also.
Then maybe we can continue.
No, just 2 minutes.
अरे उनको सुन लो, they can answer.
It's okay. I can
No,
say
actually
it
what
in one-
Rajesh is saying is true, but the problem is ki for in my case of Tripura also, there were 70 places where they were ready to do that. I had 1 or 2 blocks where he has crossed more than 90 connections, but he could not give more because of bandwidth.
Some places may
So
not be good.
I will just explain. Just
All
listen to
rural
me.
areas, yes.
But those places were not covered through mobile. So there was. He said I can give 200 connections also. Till mobile connectivity, 4G signals were not there. There were around 70 to 80 which could have been covered through TV, which will have more than 50 connections. But what about 220? The balance 220 and the rest, maybe around 20 where they were not anticipating more than 20 connections also. So
The
this is the
problem
challenge
is-
we have.
Problem is we're in
Yeah.
large, complex country.
So that's why
The population density.
there was
Villages, you
because
have
each
some
village is
commercial
not at par.
activities, Some village there will be a mandi.
Economic parity and all
So
those will
there
not
will be
come.
more
Yes,
requirement, some places
Yeah,
there
over
will
to
be
you.
less requirement.
Thank you very much for this invitation. Probably I am the weakest panelist. I'm not doing any real work like you.
That judgment you leave on us.
Right, we have done research just before 1 or 2 years, 1 year before the COVID. We spoke to around 1,500 people in Rajasthan and Vizag, especially where the pilot study of BharatNet, that time it was called as NOFAN, got introduced. We went to that particular place after 7 years. Spoke to 1,500 people who are likely to use this network to take it to the last mile, the households, from Gram Panchayat to the households. We also spoke to 20 plus people from telecom industry trying to understand why the uptake is not really there, why these people are not really coming forward to make us of this network and deliver certain services. So one small interesting finding, there are a lot of interesting findings. One is we call it as an institutional users, people who are likely to use this Bharat network to deliver certain services. So people who are running, say, smaller clinics, theaters, or small private schools, these are the people who are likely to use it as a business revenue generation activity. So close to 70% of the people did not know that BharatNet really existed, that they can really use it. Then we explained to them what is BharatNet, will you be interested? A lot of people are interested in taking this as an additional revenue generating activity. So then we started speaking to a lot of people who are running this, who are likely to participate, telecom sector. They said they had certain concerns. So I'm going to highlight maybe 2 or 3 things here. Please forgive me if I'm going to say something stupid. Okay, one is for BharatNet, we need to have a clear champion. Say for example, if you look at UPA or Aadhaar, there is a face attached to it. People spoke about Mr. Nilekani, or some people are associated with this. And a lot of political support for those kind of programs, whereas for BharatNet, we do not have it. So we need to have one champion for this particular program so people realize it, and our political parties or politicians are able to interested, okay, if I'm going to attach with this, there is a possibility that I can convert into some developmental votes or something. That particular connection linkage is not really there. So we do not see much talks or discussions around this particular BharatNet. Though there is a program is very large, amount of money being spent is very large, but we do not see this. So there is a possibility of making this as a popular. This is very, very important. So some kind of public information campaign or some mascot, some champion is really needed. This is one. The second one is private players are very reluctant to get into this. We have brought in this village level entrepreneurs as Udayani, CSCs and everything. Again, a semi-governmental organization. Private players are very reluctant to come in. They said that we don't have a very strong service level agreement with BSNL. I take internet from BSNL, I'm providing services. If the internet connectivity breaks down, customers will end up asking me questions and I don't have anything to do with BSNL. It's very hard. So if you do not have a very strong service level agreement with BSNL, if a private player comes in, if the system is breaking down, then BSNL needs to pay up money or something like that, some kind of arrangement is required. If you do not provide it, private players will not really come in. I mean, when I say private players, I'm talking about slightly rich people, entrepreneurs who are willing to take this up and do certain activities at the village level. And people also highlighted about the difficulties in getting this internet service provider license. There are some dilution has happened and it is relatively easy to do, but it is still, one of the entrepreneurs said, if I take a suitcase of money and walk into the government office, I should be able to come up with a license when I come back, and I should be able to do reselling business of this particular internet. Things should be that much easier, then the network can be used. Okay, there is a possibility of, I do not know what needs to be done, but this is the kind of expectations from people who are interested in coming into this ecosystem. Last one, I see there are a lot of activities are being done by the government related to startups. There is a huge network available and there is a lot of opportunities, but not many people know about this. It is very important that we need to bring in this young, new entrepreneurs into this particular space, telling them that there is a huge opportunity for you to do this and you can explore this, some amount of money is available. Anyway, Startup India is spending a lot of money. Some part of the money can be kept. If you have any new business models around the BharatNet, we can encourage it. We can think of using it, and a slightly deviant suggestion is making use of, say, for example, Shark Tank. Shark Tank, people have criticisms, but the kind of reach it is having amongst the people, especially related to capital, having a new business and everything, has really brought in a change, especially using the local language here. If you are able to get a time slot saying that, say, if you have any business idea related to BharatNet, you bring in people, at least a wide coverage, people start looking at this a little bit more seriously, differently. There are possibilities available. These are my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that's
I think
very, very valuable and
just like to say something that for any project for that matter, whether BharatNet or otherwise, there would have been a study or should have been a study there that what is the impact in terms of the direct employment, indirect employment, the kind of induced employment, okay, those kind of situations, okay, and then separately the social impacts, that kind of thing. I have seen several studies in different contexts that these things have been performed. I am sure that this project would also be doing something like this also, so that it strengthens basically the hands of the government and the planners. That's what I would like to say.
And thank you very much for providing the opportunity, saying that Udemy state center relationships, looking at technology standards, we need a lot of help from the university. I will take this up with my school. Probably I'll write back to you, trying to explore how we can work together. Yeah, thank you.
Udemy is actually we can correlate with this particular employment generation potential also. Like Mukesh has said, as on date we have deployed around say 8,000, 9,000 partners. The Udemy's at around say around more than 35,000 gram panchayat plus where this FTTH has been provided by BSNL. Around say 4,50,000 plus FTTH connections have been provided using BharatNet. This is based on this particular local this entrepreneur type. These local entrepreneurs are the BharatNet Udemy's actually, who have taken this business model. They understood this model and have come forward on this revenue share partners. BSNL is sharing 50% revenue, but this business model we have worked upon this business model. Say if there are 50 connections given by Udemy, then it becomes sustainable. Basically, how if one is selling a plan of around 400 rupees per month, so 200 rupees is the revenue to the for on each this thing per month to the Udemy also. So 50 into 20, around say 10,000 rupees. Let's say 200 rupees into 50 connections. So until unless the Udemy earns 10,000 rupees a month, there is no interest for him.
Yes.
In 10,000 rupees, if he earns per month, he has to invest also upfront. As on date, he has to invest in say procuring one OLT also. So that is around say 30,000, 40,000 rupees OLT. We are subsidizing the ONT and fiber and everything, so that reimbursement he gets around say 4,500 rupees, 4,000 rupees for this particular cost. We have built in certain other parameters. We can share with you some other details also. This is all complete digital this thing method. There is app for the Udemy's through which they get the customer satisfaction for each customer until unless the customer certifies that they have not given any installation payment, they are satisfied with and then the BSNL has made the complete wallet type. So as soon as the customer makes the payment, 50% comes into the wallet. This frequency of the payments also have been studied, type of uses, what type. So many things we have been doing last 7-8 months on this particular scheme, sir. So this making this a viable business for them. Now under this amended BharatNet program, we have included the cost of OLT also. But this all is under implementation. Maybe another 6 months to 1 year. Lot of more actions of making into ring.
So these BLEs are CSC linked or
No,
it's
no,
independent
no,
of CSCs? Okay.
Independent. Earlier they were CSCs.
Yeah.
Now they are the BSNL.
BSNL has agreement with
BSNL
them.
has, some of the CSC BLEs also have become
Part
the
of this, okay.
Udemy's. But now they have done a good work. They have made all this app and made it all transparent. We can study, we can see every day's output also. So from management side also, we are continuously monitoring their performance. Every day around say 1,000 plus connections are being added as on date also, 30,000 to 40,000 per month. Now we anticipate even more with this amended BharatNet program, which will be launching I think very soon from the first of the next month maybe probably. So under this, even this subsidy, this thing further has been enhanced, where there is lot less population. As I said, there has to be 50 connections. With this, maybe in some less population, there is more load on these Udemy. More attractive or more suitable for less population base. So that also has been thought of. So many things have been done. I think if time to come, it will bear the fruit. As the ring will, the operation maintenance of the network will further improve. Then this champion type of persons and all those things
Will start emerging.
If we bring it as on date, because the network performance will slowly improve.
Right. Thank you.
Will take
Thank you, Professor. Thanks for your time. And
shall we go back to Mr. Mukesh Gupta, and we interrupted you once?
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Why don't you go back to your views, please?
So most of the things have been covered. Regarding this one point which was raised by this availability of, you were telling the private operators are not coming because BSNL was not able to have reliability. So in this program, the cabinet has approved that the ILL at each block will be provided by BSNL. So based on certain SLAs and penalties in place. So that will be ensured, and from block to the GP it will be in ring. So in future, if any individual organization wants to use, they should be assured of certain minimum service level parameters. The only issue earlier BSL must have been because they were not investing anything in the OPEX or the CAPEX for the maintenance of the network. So slightly that was going down. So now with this revival package, this thing should be taken care of. So government has conducted both. First BSL is revived and this project is being given.
Sure.
So that end to end it is there. The other issues which we is the pricing of for the better utilization, the pricing of the thing at the rural end has to come, some bundling of packages, OTT should be there. Now the question what you were telling whether which service sector should slightly bear that cost. I think if some suggestion come from some research study, it would help us. On the employment generation perspective, there are some direct employment which we can see in the form of udyamis, and then in the form of maintenance people at a knock. Apart from udyami, I feel that there would be at least, if not one in each, maybe one in each GP, field technician kind of person. Because normally, very few cases udyami does himself work. He is mostly doing the marketing portion and billing portion because he earns revenue out of billing. So there would be one technical person. So we, for getting some 2.64 lakh technical person, and that too residing in that block. So first challenge would be identify that person and then the skilling part.
So even splicers also.
That's what. And third will be the toolkit. Third will be the toolkit. Toolkit we should have, which should be subsidized through the volume through the industry. So these are some of the challenges of policy which we should see from this.
We are encouraged with the pilot results. The good connections has come up and good data used to the tune of 170 GB
I
per
will
month
just
on
share
each
you
of the connections. So this is encouraged us to.
No, I'll just share you
take
some of the
this amended
data.
package.
Another thing which I would just like to bring here, that this group or otherwise any other such group in the government, have they identified some of the R&D issues or something like that in this respect? And some of that which can be hived off to the institutes or places like us, Bharti School of Telecom, we do all these things right from day one. So similar kind of thing, different IITs are doing different kind of things. I know that for sure. So is there a possibility of doing or projecting some R&D problems in this BharatNet itself at whatever level? Maybe people like to examine or something.
Because all of the technology is coming from the West, and we are trying to force that into our requirements. So there will be
all our
requirements.
IQ standards. Anyway, we will keep in mind.
So shall we move to Professor Deshmukh?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was very nice listening to all the participants. I have become quite enlightened looking at the issues and the way this project has been conceptualized. So I have two perspectives. One, that this is a very, very ambitious project. About 1.39 lakh crore investment. And
the kind of impact it is going to have. Just Vignesh said that this is a different kind of a project. The visibility is not there. Unlike roadways or railways, we do not see. But what is visible will be the long-term impact. Impact on our economy, especially impact on rural economy, the potential for employment generation, the kind of connectivity which is going to be provided by this project. So we have to look at it from that point of view. But this is a very, very ambitious project. And thanks to the kind of expertise we have gathered. Now look at the slightly out of place mention, but the way we executed our COVID administration. It was world's largest distribution channel, not only developing the R&D capability, but also delivering the vaccine. And in that we got sufficient expertise. Expertise of what? Expertise of having a governance structure which cuts into state and central government, which also gets into private and public partners, and at the grassroots level. It's a very huge learning coming out of this. The second, Madam was mentioning about the disaster, that we have got a very interesting topography. We are subject to a lot of disaster. But over the years, we have also gathered sufficient expertise in managing the disaster project. For example, recent, if you see the cyclone, the casualty in Orissa and Gujarat is hardly anything. It is not even in 100. So credit must be given to the capacity that we have built, and that enabled by technology intervention. So I think we have to leverage a huge learning coming out of this. The third learning ground is what you are sharing, what we gained in phase 1 and phase 2. Now again, that learning is also to be capitalized when we are thinking of the phase 3. And this is like any classical project. In any classical project, what are the critical success factors? One is the engagement of all stakeholders, leveraging our R&D capability and capacity. Then involving each and every person, Vignesh rightly mentioned, and there has to be a champion. There has to be a group of champions for executing this kind of project. And we have also got sufficient capability in leveraging our IT. We are supposed to be the IT capital of the world. I think that expertise can also be brought into picture. And the success stories need to be documented. And in such kind of telecom project, Australia has done something, New Zealand has done something. So maybe we also borrow that. But at the same time, what is specific? We are a very, very interesting country. And our country has huge diversity. The kind of relationship between center and state, the kind of literacy, and the kind of adaptability we have in our own soil. But thanks to the success stories like UPI, and nobody could have imagined that UPI could be a big success. In their dream, I don't think MasterCard or Visa would have ever imagined that there could be a potential threat coming from this. Now they are complaining. They are saying that the architecture is not good, architecture is not promoting everything and so on. So I would expect similar kind of objection coming from the private players. Even in this, we are saying BharatNet. And we have to take as a showcasing of our capability, our Atmanirbhar mission. And we must also project the local entrepreneurship, connecting with each and every stakeholder. So that is the next issue, that we must be aware of the huge capacity building. Capacity is required. You have nicely mentioned, you require skilling as well as scaling. For skilling, we require a huge degree of capacity building. In PM Gati Shakti program, there is a massive target of training 75,000 professionals. And NITI, now it has become IIM Mumbai. They have been entrusted with this mission. So we can imagine similar kind of capacity building for this. Not only for technical people, because as somebody said, the half-life of technical skill is hardly 2.5 years. And in this telecom, I would imagine it would be still lesser than that. So if we want to make our network future ready, we must also have good investment in training our people. Training not only for the existing one, but for the coming technologies which are going to be resilient, technologies which are to be implemented literally at the grassroots level. And that requires a very, very strong liaison between government, the educational institute, as sir was mentioning. Many of the issues can be easily delegated to the institute. And let us try to imagine a consortium-based approach where educational institute, the government, the private player, and you as policy think tank, we come together, we have a good convergence, and then we visualize this project in a very, very ambitious manner, which will make us all future ready. Because everybody is looking at us. So there is a great challenge. Now everybody has sensed the blood, what India can do. And I think we must also rise to this particular challenge. So I would imagine that the professional approach for managing this kind of absolutely mega scale project and side by side the capacity building. I think these two issues needs a lot of attention. And that attention can be gathered provided we are all on the same page.
I think very, very in-depth insights that you brought out, Professor Deshmukh, which is as usual. And so we look forward to listening to you every single time. I think there's very important steps that needs to be taken. And as you rightly mentioned, there needs to be a government, academia, civil society, kind of a consortium that needs to solve some of these problems. So we're almost round of time. I was thinking if we can quickly go around the table and have
My
the
one
last
session, since you have got huge experience in phase 1 and phase 2, if those case studies can be shared, or maybe we can develop some case studies, and that will be really a good learning ground.
Absolutely, absolutely.
That should be
So
excellent.
what worked, what didn't work?
Maybe there has been large number of deliberations and sort of committees also, high-level committees also. During 2015 for the phase 2 there was a committee which came out with recommendation, and this phase 2 was approved by Union Cabinet in 2017, and again 2019 under the say chairmanship of the head Niti Aayog, Chairman Niti Aayog, there was a committee which came out with further recommendation for the PPP model in 2019. So there has been a very large amount of
These are all
studies on Bharat.
governmental deliberations.
Right, sir, then the program has been modified accordingly, and now during last one and a half years also, large number of deliberations at the Niti Aayog level and other PSA level and other level have been done, and then this program has come up, what we are now trying to implement. It will take there are certain milestone, and the monitoring has been started. I think we have to run against the time to implement the program.
Right. So I think if you can just quickly go around and have one point that you think is the most important that government and academia should take together to ensure that we have a future ready Bharat.
As on it, what we are compressed upon is to have quickly coming out with a successful rollout program, and coming out with a RFP which actually has good takers and good involvement of all private players. So that is our present date
Priority.
priority.
Great. Thank you. Madam, over to you.
1 point.
I mean, there's so many points that it gets difficult.
Yeah, so we talked about large variety.
Actually, BharatNet he has already told. So the basic requirement is that sometimes I feel that we should also have the proper user scenarios, because that also would really lead to the requirements whether to have a fiber, whether to have a mobile. Because many times this debate keeps happening that I already have a mobile, why should I have a fiber?
Right.
And that is the biggest issue which I feel was one of the deterrents in the BharatNet utilization taking off. So now with lot of support, government support, so we have finally been successful in appointing some Udyamis who have been successful in getting business for us.
Offtake is the
So,
biggest issue.
Yeah, so utilization is a big issue which has to be studies, like we have to have some really killer apps where the use of fiber is mandatory. and-
Another place I was wondering, what is the killer app for 5G also? We've had more bandwidth, it's consuming the battery.
For 5G, we are now working out lot of working with ministries for coming out with their use cases,
Right,
and let us hope some of them get successful.
absolutely, absolutely. What do you, Mr. Gupta?
Same for me also. I think the technical network rollout should not be an issue. Only thing, the usage part and the use cases should be there. Because if there are more users or more subscribers, then it will become self-sustained, everything, data usage, everything. So 2, 3, like you told, was health and education. That will be tremendously benefited through this. Apart from this rural, maybe the KVKs, the Krishi Vikas Kendras, and then police, forest outposts, other things would get connected. Even in Tripura, we had one meeting with the disaster management where they were also thinking if they are having some kind of a node or the sensor. So if proper connectivity is there, they can have that district, village wise, where they can predict and maybe rainfalls, what kind of impact it might have. So those are the use cases. Maybe for the agriculture also, lot of things. So those kind of, if academy, I can suggest those kind of things, use cases, then and we can have discussion, engagement with states to have increase the utilization part.
Very good.
That
Thank
there
you.
we need your help. And second was the how this economic transformation would lead to employment kind of things, and like maybe
That impact has to be studied.
study. These two things I think we need. We don't have the expertise in the
And that's
academy.
where so moving back to you, Professor Deshmukh.
I would say we have to emphasize more and more on standardization.
Right.
And in standardization, I think academic institute can play a very significant role.
Right.
I am on 2 or 3 committees of BIS,
Mm.
and BIS has evolved a strategic plan what India should be doing by 2030. And what they want to do, that India should be also a global player as far as standardization is concerned. Right now what happened, we try to just adopt ISO standards. That is okay. But we must also have our own system, and we must also be able to tell to the world that these standards have evolved, these standards have been tested, and now we can migrate to the next level. So from that point of view, I think BharatNet provides a huge opportunity. It's a huge canvas for showcasing our standardization effort. I think let us try to project that.
Absolutely. I think standards is always been critical. Professor Gupta,
Yes,
you bring the most amount of experience.
I would like to say that we should be having a situation in which some kind of a periodic review of techniques, technologies and architectures that are being deployed here. And whatever tweaking is required should be done so that, and aim should be that we should be able to meet the performance goals. Okay. Now performance goal can be multiple goals can be there, and they can be combined or maybe seen initially in isolation and then combined later, whichever way would be there. But there has to be something that we should be looking at it at periodic level. Okay. So infusion of new techniques and technologies, okay, and R&D efforts. That's what my.
Govinda would like to add something.
I'm on listening mode.
Right. So I think that brings us to the end of a very, very erudite conversation. I think as usual, we end up gaining a lot. We also try and contribute back. We have been taking these ideas and putting them up in newspapers and magazines so that there is a wider understanding of the issues.
Please don't
And-
quote our names.
No. So as we said, this is this is for consultation only. And we will put all of this back in a paper. It's not the minutes of the meeting, but just a discussion paper which we will give back to you for whatever value it may have. And so with that, I'll hand over back to Dr. Mitra.
Yeah, actually, also we understand that you are all serving government officers, so there will be nothing which will come on to you. But notwithstanding being a government officer, the candid statements that you have made, each of you, is remarkable. That indicates your true professionalism and commitment to the cause. On behalf of the city, one request is, do you feel that we can contribute by way of any research, right, in a policy research to assist you? We'll be too happy to be assisted on all of that. So you can feel free to connect us, right? So therefore, we'll be too happy to undertake any kind of research on this matter. So, and when we do the research, we do really good job. Thank you very much for yeah. Vote of thanks to Bharti.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Urvashi Paul, Policy Manager for C-DEP. I would like to thank all senior panelists for sparing time in their busy schedules to participate in the C-DEP roundtable discussion on deploying future-ready networks for Bharat. And we look forward to knowledge partnering with DOT, for your research by way of research and policy inputs. I would request Akansha and Suhasini and Anahita to please assist Dr. Bhattacharya for just giving a small token of appreciation and along with a bouquet to all the senior panelists. Akansha. Professor H.M. Gupta.
I'll just come there, it'll be faster. Thank you so much.
Professor S.G. Deshmukh.
Professor, do you want to say this? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it is true.
Thank you.
इसमें डॉक्टर राजेश और मुकेश
Thank you. Thank you so much. You will picture somebody's statement.
One of my very old students, 76, I thought he is currently the defense
Thank you.
Rajesh.
He said that he would like to meet me. I said, okay, after finishing this, I will be talking to ideas of
I think we need to look, that's right.
I almost forget how to come to
These are digital pictures which will go on the cable that you are laying.
Mukesh Gupta.
मुकेश
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
we have a lunch, please join us.
I think we had such excellent discussions. I think we have earned the lunch now.